Yeah, welcome to a Terror House Radio, episode number 54. I'm Matt Forney, your charming and loquacious host, and the founder and editor-in-chief of Terror House Press. We are live, our very first live episode, a real milestone for us. We're here on StreamYards, and my guest for this program is Andy Nowicki. He is the author of many fine books, such as The Columbine Pilgrim, The Under the Nile, Lost Found Souls, and of course, Heart Killer, which will be out 1 week from today, Friday. Andy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Matt. Good to be back, and hey, I'm flattered that for your first live broadcast, you would choose me to be the one to join you live.
Well, I think going back to including my old podcast, I've probably interviewed you more than any other person. Because you've been on the show 4 times now. You've been on you were on my old show something like 4 or 5 times or something. Yeah. Sorry. We're also going to be joined by Eris, Elizabeth Victoria Aldrich. She's the substitute co-host. If any of you are wondering what happened to Bryden, he's taken an extended break. So we're trying something new here. But she'll be with us shortly. The format of the show is still pretty much the same, though. But one key difference is that obviously you can interact in the chat. But as you can see with the overlay there, if you have any questions for Andy, Eris, or myself, you can send a Streamlabs tip at streamlabs.com/terrorhousemagazine, and we'll read that on the show. A little bit more convenient than sending them in before the show and then having us read them there anyway. But anyway. Let's just get right into it. Andy, you want to talk a bit about Heart Killer? Talk a bit about the book. Introduce it for the fine people out there.
Sure. Well, how to begin to talk about Heart Killer? I think that maybe the most interesting way to introduce this book is to talk about what actually provided the inspiration for it. I used to teach full-time at a sort of a community college, a 2-year college that was located right near an Army base, actually a very large Army base, Fort Stewart in Hinesville, Georgia. And so I taught, the basic level English, one literature class, and one composition class. And so as a result, I solicited a lot of student writing, which was, it's a mixed bag, but it was generally interesting. I'm always fascinated to hear people's stories. And you can imagine, I started working there in 2005, and it went up through, I believe, 2014 was when my tour of duty there ended, and so to speak. But I say tour of duty because I actually had a lot of students who were soldiers and who had experiences in Iraq, combat experience, and all kinds of things. And I had some other students who were families of, like, military families. Just about everybody who lives near Fort Stewart is military affiliated in some way. So, I had some more traditional aged students, but then I had some who were older and who'd been to Iraq maybe a couple of times. And so, when it came to student writing assignments, I read a lot of interesting things, about tours of duty, people who had to endure combat and so forth. But one of the I would say the most interesting account that I ever read was after we read the story The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. And the way that I taught, and the way that I would still teach if I were or that I will teach again if I do ever teach again, is I would try to get some kind of student involvement in the themes of what we were reading, because it's not always easy to get a class discussion going. And so, you ask a open-ended question and nobody's hands go up, and then you kind of have to choose whether you're going to call. I don't like to call on people who don't want to talk, and so for me the solution was.
Sorry. Yeah, you're here. Eris has joined us.
Okay.
Well, Eris, you need to connect your mic, Eris, because it wasn't working. But anyway, sorry, Andy, continue.
Okay. Well, we'll looking forward to greeting Eris in a moment, but we so I assigned this topic. I just had them write a paragraph on the subject of, think of a time when you either sought revenge or were tempted to seek revenge for some.
Okay, hi.
It's working. Eris is here. Hi, Eris.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, did you hear me? Jesus.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool.
Hey.
Okay, Andy, I really loved your book, Under the Nile.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fun. Yeah.
I actually have your little review queued up, Eris. I can play that. I'm going to play it on the show later. But Andy, sorry, you would continue.
Okay, so just to bring Eris up to date, I'm talking about Matt asked what the inspiration was for me writing Heart Killer, the book that's about to be published by Terror House in a week. And I was teaching at a college, and I had a assignment. I had the students assigned to read the story "The Cask of Amontillado" by Edgar Allan Poe, which is about a protagonist who takes very cold-blooded revenge against another character for a perceived wrong. And so, to sort of get student involvement in the subject, I solicited, this general question. I asked everybody to write me just a paragraph or two, and I said, I won't reveal any secrets if you did anything really awful. This is like a confessional booth. Sort of joked about it. But what's a time when you were tempted to get revenge, where you really wanted to seek revenge for something? And the most interesting written assignment, it wasn't an essay so much, it was just sort of a writing assignment to finish off the class, but the most interesting answer that I got was from this guy who was this very sort of unassuming, kind of soft-spoken person, not very physically prepossessing, not really somebody that you would expect to hear the kind of story that he told. But what he said was, what he told me was he had married his high school sweetheart, and then he went off to war in Iraq. And while he was in Iraq, his wife was unfaithful to him, and I think came back. When he came back, they got divorced, and he was bitter and heartbroken about this. And so what he decided to do was, since he had believed in love, and had been let down, and it had, she had failed him, and he had been betrayed and stabbed in the back. He decided he was going to find a bunch of women who were in a similar situation that his wife was in. These military wives, and it's sort of a tale as old as time. Unfortunately, the cuckolding that happens during wartime when men go off to war. Not all wives, of course.
The cuckold in wartime.
Yeah, it
Well,
happened.
that's what happened to Hugh Hefner, I believe.
Really?
For 7 years, but anyways.
Yeah. He served in World War II, if I recall correctly. Well, I know he served in the military, and he came back and discovered that his high school sweetheart had been sleeping with another man.
Well, that's interesting. So that certainly set him on his trajectory, maybe. But so in this case, my student wrote in his semi essay that he decided he was going to find these military wives and seduce them, and then afterwards contact their husbands and say, tell them what happened, and say, guess what, your wife is worthless, your wife is a whore, and so it was like, wow. I mean, I was shocked. I was really taken aback by this essay. And
did he put a lot of effort into his classwork as much
he was an okay student, but like I said, there was nothing really that stood out with him, and he wasn't like somebody who you would, just looking at him, you wouldn't think, oh, this is a cunning seducer here. This is a guy who's, this is a Don Juan for sure. He didn't have that kind of aspect about him at all. It's possible that he just made the story up. There's no way to know for sure, but in any case, whether it was real or fictional, it captured my attention and captured my imagination. And it was just the whole idea of somebody, a guy who decided to go out and become a Don Juan, a Lothario, a seducer, a serial seducer, because but not for the pleasurable aspects of it, but rather just because he was mad at the world. He was angry with what had happened to him, and he wanted to get some measure of I don't know what you would call it, justice. It's definitely not justice, but
I've never been I think I can understand. That's so relatable though, because everyone's been so mad at the world that they want everyone else to suffer the same way. Or maybe they're just also in that there's that, but also, hey, I want to see how you would deal with this. So
yeah. Well, it was strangely relatable, and I'm a writer who's, like, as you know, if you read Under the Nile, you could probably tell from that book, and also if you've read The Columbine Pilgrim, which I wrote before I wrote Under the Nile, you can tell that the whole theme of revenge is something that I'm definitely interested in, and the cathartic value of revenge, but also the moral questions that it raises. It's an interesting, it's a very engaging sort of literary subject for me, and so this student of mine just gave me this idea for what became Heart Killer, and originally my working title for Heart Killer was, I think, Matt, I maybe have told you this.
You may have.
I originally wanted to call it The Carnal Terrorist. I thought that was a really interesting because that's basically what the character is, what he does.
Heart Killer is so much better.
Well, that's what everybody has said that. So
you'll all have a copy in your hot little hands by this time next week, so you'll be able to take that for yourself. Yeah. But I did manage to fit Carnal Terrorist on the back cover, though. So it's there.
Yeah. Well, that's what this. It's sort of what he. I mean, I think it's the concept of it that somebody would be. At the time that I wrote this, I was sort of, I knew about the PUA, the pickup artist, the state of the manosphere. It was kind of in a different. This was nearly 10 years ago now. It was kind of a different ballpark than it is today, and PUA was kind of a prominent thing as far as I knew. The pickup artist or the seduction.
That man with the hat.
Yeah, sorry.
The magic guy with the hat. He had like
Yeah. The magic guy with the hat and a bunch of other figures,
yeah.
which you can read about in sort of in the Chronicles of Bryden the Barbarian by Matt Lawrence, another book by published by Terror House Press. By the way, Matt Lawrence is also our art director, and he's the guy who came up with this brilliant cover art, which I'm going to put up on screen right now as soon as StreamYard wants to work. But anyway, Andy, continue.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Great cover art by Matt, by the way. Love it. But so at the time there was the stuff going on in the Manosphere. There was I don't think MGTOW had really come into its own yet. Like, and this whole thing that's become the quote unquote incel phenomenon hadn't really happened yet. And so there were guys who called themselves Red Pill, and there were like anti-feminists, and there were these seduction types, these PUAs, pickup artists. Roosh V, I think, was the prominent one among them, and now he's gone very much the opposite direction.
He's now a devout Christian.
Yeah, which is interesting. But so at the time, I sort of thought, this whole idea of pickup artistry, I had my issues with it. I had my problems with it, of course. But then I also thought to myself, what if, you had somebody who was engaging in this kind of behavior, with an agenda, an agenda that goes beyond just wanting to seduce a bunch of women and put notches in his belt and, burnish his ego in that way, but rather somebody whose agenda was beyond just beyond pleasure or hedonism. It was revenge against the world. And so that's sort of what gave birth to the character in the protagonist, the anti-hero, very, very much anti-hero. He's like out of all the anti-heroes I've featured in my books, this Johann, the main character in this story is maybe the antiest of all, even worse than Tony Meander.
Did you find yourself getting into like a certain state, like a certain mindset when writing it? Because I know when I wrote my antagonist, it was inspired by like this coldness that I felt after like breaking up with this one girl.
Oh yeah, I was, and I should also say, this was a time period for me when, and I don't know if you felt this way when you were writing your work, but I was in the midst of a time period where I was blessed with like inspiration endlessly coming over me. I was writing like nonstop. I was writing at will. I was just churning things out, and that lasted, like, I remember it started around 2010. When I wrote the Columbine Pilgrim, that was really what got it started, and it lasted like until maybe 2013, and then sort of petered out or at around that time. But this was the high period of literary inspiration for me. And to answer your question, I really got into the mode of writing from this character's point of view, and really, I think I've always found it cathartic to write from to take on an anti-hero's perspective, to take, like, it's sort of like you take yourself as you are, but you remove all of your mild-manneredness, you remove all of your well, not all of it, but you remove a great deal of your inhibition, and you remove a lot of
justice warrior.
Yeah, and you remove your scruples, and you become this kind of character. And so it was there was definitely a real cathartic aspect to writing from this person's point of view. But I should also say that, like, and maybe we'll get into this later. I think it's important also to say that this novel became something rather convoluted. It was not. It's the way that I've been talking about it so far. It just sort of sounds pretty straightforward, and it's really not straightforward at all. It's a narrative that goes all over the place, as maybe Matt can attest.
It doesn't. I don't think you would write a boring, straightforward book. I've read your books.
His books are anything but straightforward.
Yeah. So Matt, what would you say? How would you describe what it turned out to be? What Heart Killer turned out to be? Like,
it felt like getting raped. I mean, I think I said that when I reviewed it years ago when it was originally published by ER Books. But yeah, it's
like a date rape, like what kind of? You have to be more specific here.
Like a prison rape.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, now why would anybody want to read it now?
Well, we do have a lot of masochists in the audience, so
okay, that's not the sales pitch I would have chosen. But anyway, I'm still interested in hearing what, like, I'm just saying.
I'll send it to the people I know in prison. You know.
Yeah. Well. But
well, I read it as basically years ago when it was still relatively new. I read it as kind of just kind of steeped, as you said, in that whole early 2010s, late 2000s manosphere type culture, because there was an undercurrent of on at least pickup blogs and stuff. There was this undercurrent of anger and such.
And there was a feminist cat blog lady.
Oh, there were tons of those. Trust me. There's more than enough of that. Of that.
I read so much of that book, and I was like, I missed out on the manosphere because I was on LiveJournal.
Well, I mean, that was an adventure. That was an adventure in and of itself. I was never a LiveJournal person. The only LiveJournal I ever read was Weeds. But yeah, and I think you captured it. To go back to Heart Killer, I think you captured that pretty well, Andy, in terms of kind of taking that culture to its to a possible dark logical conclusion.
Yeah.
But I also read it as kind of a like it's a lot more tender than my description gives it credit for, because it doesn't really it's not about assigning blame to anyone. Part of the reason why the main character becomes who he is because he wants to get revenge on the world. He feels wronged somehow. He observes what happens to his mother. He observes what happens to himself with regards to in high school being bullied and mistreated, and he and he just becomes very embittered at that. But you don't necessarily paint it as like a positive. You point out, because the book does not begin from his perspective. It begins from the perspective of Francis Lazarus, the FBI agent who's assigned to investigate all these suicides going on at this high school.
Shit, that's good.
And you delve into her own history, her own depravity, as it were.
Yes. So that's yeah. I mean, the immediate inspiration for the story was what I have revealed, but the story ended up going in a lot of different directions because, first of all, as you say, there are dual protagonists. There's a female protagonist who and her perspective is from her perspective, the book almost takes on this sort of, I don't know, procedural crime novel sort of perspective. She's this brilliant FBI investigator, and she's working a case. She ends up working a case that really makes her makes her into a celebrity, and so she becomes I don't know what to compare her to, but like some kind of investigator who who cracks this case that's this huge sensational case where all of these girls are committing mass suicide at this high school during the 80s. She cracks that case and she becomes this sort of
Reminds me of Al in Death Note.
Oh, that's interesting. My daughter really likes that anime. I've never seen it, but so she becomes this kind of celebrity. Frances does, but she secretly, she's not. She's secretly dissatisfied, and she has these kind of depraved desires herself, and so the story there's a. It's a dual narrative.
Of women with depraved desires.
Yeah, well, that's right. So it's a dual narrative with Frances on the one hand and Johann on the other, and it goes back and forth between their two stories, and eventually their stories intertwine. Eventually they meet, but in the most convoluted possible way because there's. I don't want to there's so much going on. There's a lot going on in this novel. There's the war between the sexes, the seduction, the desire for revenge. There's the angry protagonist who's really mad at his father. Actually, both characters have daddy issues, but.
I love that.
Okay, well, you'll probably enjoy it. I hope you do. But then there's also this. There gets to be a time travel aspect of the story, which is hopefully. Well, I mean, I'm saying it right now, so it's not going to be totally unexpected. But I would think that it things shape up in a way because I'm a science fiction fan. I've always been fascinated by time travel to a degree, but also by alternate history, alternate timelines, and how history can change just on a dime. If history can hinge on some very seemingly unimportant things. I've written a couple of short stories to that effect as well, where a character does something a little bit different, and all of history goes awry or goes differently. And in this case, we have eventually our anti-hero Johann. He's living in the present. Or what was the present, I guess, back the time that I wrote it, and eventually he's as you can guess, just living this life of an angry seducer. It's got its charms for him. It's like of course he gets this rush out of doing it because he enjoys inflicting pain on the world that has inflicted pain on him, but it eventually is kind of an empty sort of life for him. So then he dreams about the idea of going back in time, and then something happens, something magical and inexplicable happens, and he finds himself back in 10th grade in 1987, going to his high school, but with the mindset and the mentality of this grown man who's this
Are you giving too much away? Is this really a love story?
It's a love story. So now he hasn't given away the key elements of the plot.
Oh,
No.
I'm sure.
But I did want to mention the time travel aspect of it, and also I think the 80s aspect of it is that's a selling point because people are really nuts about the 80s, including a lot of people who never lived in the 80s, and I was actually there. You guys probably weren't.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Did you ever heard that Dirt Nasty song? Like, I lived through the 80s. That shit was crazy.
No, I don't know.
I mean, I guess I was I was in the technical sense there in the 80s because I was born in '88, but I don't remember anything of that.
Right. Right.
And that's another key thing too, because around the time that you wrote the book, '80s nostalgia was a very big thing in the late aughts. I remember, there was '80s dance night everywhere. '80s fashion was coming back. People were into '80s bands all over again.
Yes, Hot Tub Time Machine, and which was really terrible. I didn't care for it for the movie, but there were some other movies that were set in the '80s that were kind of more charming or more interesting, or and so for me it was like there's the cathartic aspect of taking this anti-hero, this guy who's me, but who's much more angry, much more just way past, completely unscrupulous, and then taking this character and taking him back to high school again, and so now he's this high school, he's in the body of this high school dweeb, this awkward 16-year-old that he was at the time, but now he's got all the mentality that he had. He's this accustomed seducer. He's this experienced, seasoned seducer, and so
he's also got the mentality of an embittered middle-aged person.
Yes, an embittered middle-aged seducer in the body of a 16-year-old boy, which is pretty depraved. And you want to talk about depravity? I mean, that's there you have it. So he's able to do things. He's able to. I won't go into any of the details now, but you can just imagine like the kind of the girls that he went to high school with, that he lusted after, that wouldn't give him the time of day, looked down on him, made fun of him, and so forth. He has a whole different approach to them, and that sets certain other things in motion, which leads to eventually to Francis Lazarus, the FBI agent, coming in to investigate, because eventually things get out of control. Like I said, events conspire. I'm going to be vague about it because I don't want to give everything away. But what Johann does as a 40-year-old in a 16-year-old's body in high school changes the course of time, and it eventually starts this trend of mass suicides taking place. That suddenly at this affluent, relatively affluent school, there's all of these students, mostly girls, engaging in these suicide pacts, and nobody knows what's going on. The parents are all freaked out, and so the FBI comes to study the case, and that brings Frances, the FBI agent, the female protagonist, the sort of female anti-hero, if you will, finally brings her into contact with Johann, where he's a grown man, but in the body of a 16-year-old, and she's a grown woman in the body of a grown woman at the time. So yes, to answer your question, there's kind of a love story aspect of it, but it's a very freaky, weird, uncomfortable kind of love story, I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah. I do have a question for you, Andy. How familiar are you with the works of Leopold von Sacher-Masoch? Just because reading Heart Killer, I was reminded of his novella Venus and Furs, which is the most famous thing he ever wrote, and the only thing of his that he's written that's actually available in English. if you're not familiar with Sackler Maslow, you should probably know that the term masochism comes from his name, in the same way that sadism comes from the Marquis de Sade. Venus and Furs
guy, huh?
Yeah. He was he was
in high school.
Oh,
he was into leather. The Venus and Furs is this is a side note. I actually recently got a copy of the complete version, the complete cycle of stories that story novella comes from. Maybe you'll see an English translation from Terror House, the first ever. But
that would be cool.
Basically, Venus and Furs is about a man who wants to just totally submit to a woman, just like, be treated like trash, be under her heel, etc. And it doesn't work out because he gets what he wants, and he's abused to the point where he comes to the conclusion at the end of the book that I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, the protagonist says, woman can either be under a man's at his throat or at his heel, but never his equal until she's his equal in work and education. Were you thinking of themes like that when you wrote Heart Killer, stuff like that? Because the subtext there is the relationship between men and women in the modern era of the book.
Yeah. See, well, I'm not familiar at all with this work that you're describing, and I'll definitely have to take a look at it. But there is, I guess, that the subject of submission versus versus domination comes into play, and I should also say that I don't know if this would be a kink of the story or not. I'm not sure if that's the right word for it, but Johann, whenever he goes about on his seductive quests, when he's with someone, when he's succeeded at seducing someone, he never reaches climax. He never allows himself to reach a climax, because for him that defeats the purpose. It's like he wants to show his domination. He wants to show that he can make them climax, but he's not going to, because it's not about that. It's, again, for him, it's not about pleasure. It's about, well, it is. It's not about pleasure in the sense of orgasm. It's about pleasure in the sense of just taking somebody down a peg and enjoying it.
That's totally a power move and a kink move. And I've dated a dominatrix for 7 years, so you can quote me for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, it's a great way to mindfuck a woman, if you don't come, because every woman assumes that that's going to happen as a matter of course. If you don't come, she's going to be completely wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and it's sort of like, well, that's all that men care about. Like, it's right. It's just sort of like, oh, just give them 3 minutes and they'll be finished. That's the sort of stereotype, and in a lot of cases it's accurate. But for Johann, it's like this is part of the enjoyment of it is not reaching the point of climax for him. Only, like I said, only bringing it about in his conquests. And so for him, that's like part of the whole, that's sort of the cherry on the top of the domination.
Sex is dirty?
I think so. I think on some level, I don't think he ever came to learn, like, that he never really
that sex can be enjoyable.
That sex could be enjoyable. That it can be, that it belongs in a loving relationship. That it can be even a sacrament. That it can be part of a marriage, and that from it, children come, and that that sort of mentality never takes hold with him. Now, near the end, when he meets his what could be his match, in more ways than one, Frances, the female protagonist. Then things change a little bit. The paradigm changes for him, for both of them, actually. But up to that point, no, I think he always sort of thought of it as, when he first became aware of being sexually desirous, it was sort of an aspect of humiliation. It was sort of like, I'm just this dweeb, this loser in high school, and people are making fun of me, and none of the girls like me or want me, and he compounded that with these sort of complex parental problems. His father was this brilliant psychologist or scientist, but leaves his family, leaves his mother behind, and marries someone else, and they never see him again. And that also adds to his to the anger that he feels, and eventually he seduces his father's new wife.
Wow.
That comes.
A bunch of people are definitely lining up to pre-order the book now.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns, but it's all him motivated by it. That's why I was so interested in the whole notion of of him as a carnal terrorist, which I can accept it doesn't work as a title, but for me the whole question of terrorism, what motivates terrorism, what makes a person want to be a terrorist. That's all kind of fascinating to me, and the whole notion of him being this carnal terrorist, this person who engages in seduction, not for the purpose of self gratification, but
I wish carnal terrorist was my criminal charge. That would be awesome.
The Bin Laden of the bedroom.
There you go. So, I mean, that's it. That's Heart Killer, I guess, in a nutshell, without giving too much away.
It's a theme that you've explored in a lot of your works. I mean, it was more muted in Columbine, Pilgrim, and Under the Nihil, but the whole idea of kind of like the sexual drive being kind of a Cthulhu-like monster in human beings' existence. You examine this a bit in Lost Violent Souls, which we published back in October, and you have another work that we're publishing later this year, This Malignant Mirage, which is really all about that concept. Because it's just it's written in a similar style to Heart Killer. It's anti-erotic short stories.
Ooh.
Right. Yes, I mean, that became a sort of thing for me. I mean, for about a year or so, I was writing just exclusively, about like the tales of sexual intrigue, or the title. I think the subtitle I have for this Malignant Mirage was Tales of Carnal Melancholia.
Nice.
Tales of something rage and carnal melancholia. Tales of erotic rage and carnal melancholia. So
erotic rage, I love that.
Yeah, thanks. So it was definitely always the darker side of sex, although it wasn't, it's not anything to me. Like, I've read a little bit of Desaad, and that's like, that's not my thing at all.
Desaad's a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
Plus, his most famous work, he never actually finished it. Like
120 Days. Macho Sluts?
Sorry?
Macho Sluts by Pat Cliffia.
No. I haven't read that. No.
It's fantastic, and
What's it called again?
Macho Sluts, it's like, it got banned in Canada, but it's like the best like lesbian S&M book you will ever read, and it goes hard.
I think at least half the audience is watching this with one hand now.
And they make fun of Andrew Dworkin in the first chapter, so even though I love Andrew Dworkin, I love that they make fun of her.
Well, that'll definitely get the MGTOWs interested who are watching.
And there's also the story of O, which I think I encountered somewhere along the way.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's a lot better than Desaad. I think you would like Massock though. His style of writing is a lot more. Well, at least the translations are a bit more straightforward. I find Massock interesting just because he was kind of forced by reality to recognize that his what he wanted wasn't really compatible with what was possible. And also because he's just not as well known, obviously he his name inspired the term masochism. That was coined by an Austrian psychologist, and Sacker Massock himself actually didn't like that. Like, he was really mad about that. But then he got condemned to an insane asylum, so he really couldn't lodge any complaints, and then he died. He was Austrian. He lived most of his life in Lemberg, as it's now called Lviv in Western Ukraine. There's actually a restaurant in Lviv that's themed around his works. It's an S&M restaurant. You walk in, and all the waitresses are carrying whips. There's whips on the walls and stuff. The waitresses will randomly beat you as they walk by. And if you order a mixed drink, they will make you take your shirt off and kneel on a chair, and they'll start whipping your ass.
I take it you've been to this establishment?
Yeah, I went there once when I was in Lviv years ago. I didn't get whipped, because all I did was order.
You're talking about Wholesome, right?
What? Sorry? Yeah.
Wholesome? Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because as soon as they found out I was a foreigner, like, one of the waitresses pulled another guy who was eating with his girlfriend over for a demonstration. It was like, and I know they were doing it for a demonstration because they just started suddenly speaking English. And, like, the dude was like just this fat dude who was middle aged, and he just leans over and and she's just beating the hell out of him with the whip. And then she gives him the whip, and he starts beating his girlfriend in front of me. I got video of it. It was pretty hilarious. I would play it, but I'm pretty sure that would get us striked off of YouTube. But yeah, I might show that to you sometime. It's very funny.
That's wild.
Did you ever go to the Citadel?
No, I haven't.
Power Exchange?
No, I've never been to there.
There are all these S&M restaurants and all these Eastern European towns. Is this what I'm gathering?
Well, like, Lviv is where Massock was from, so they were just kind of trying to celebrate his legacy. I will say one thing though: the food at Massock Cafe is absolutely terrible. I ordered like a pork roast, and they gave me like 3 shriveled pieces of meat that were each the size of a quarter.
Well, but I will say, in keeping with the theme, like, right? If you're a masochist, then you would want to eat terrible food.
I'm a masochist. It doesn't mean I want diarrhea.
But yeah, it's but it does have really good service, again, because the waitresses presumably are allowed to just take their frustration out on bad clients by beating them up.
That's wild. Sorry, I just had to let the cat out.
It's and actually, perfect opportunity, because we've actually been getting some Streamlabs tips. People have got questions about the book. And if you have questions, you can send us a tip at streamlabs.com/terrorhousemagazine. That funds the show, and Eris will be getting a cut of that as well. But anyway, let's go to the questions. Alaska Chaga for $5.50. Andy, what grade did that student get in the class? Also, many men won't believe women are cheating on them even when presented with evidence.
What grade did that student get? I mean, I don't remember. I think probably a B or a B plus on that assignment. I think I gave him I didn't give letter grades to those writing assignments because it was something a little more informal. But I think I gave him a check plus on the assignment just because it really blew my mind. It was really good as far as I mean, it was disturbing, but it was, that was part of what was so compelling about it. What was the other part? That some men don't believe that they're being cheated on,
even when they're presented with evidence.
Does that just apply to men? I bet there are a lot of people, men and women, who just want to live in denial. Do you think it's more? Do you think that more men don't want to believe it than women don't want to believe it or live in denial about it? I'm not sure.
I can go the other way around. Like, I was like sure that someone was cheating on me, and I was just like, no, I don't believe you. You are cheating on me, and I just went psychotic on me.
I don't know. I mean, in my experience, women tend to be more realistic about this kind of thing. This actually goes back to the theme of Heart Killer and the whole manosphere thing. The kind of the adage that men are romantics and women are realists. Men are more likely to get kind of wistful, brokenhearted when a relationship goes south or whatever, whereas women, are more likely to
rebound a lot faster.
It's sort of the exact opposite of what we're taught to believe, if that's true.
Matt is way more romantic than I am, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm not romantic at all, so that kind of can tell you where Eris is coming from. But anyway, the next question, Scott Terry for $5 says, does Andy consider himself in the literary tradition of O'Connor and the Southern Gothic? Also, post-military depression almost had me until Andy's book, Considering Suicide, stepped in.
Hi, Scott. It's great to hear from you. I would say O'Connor is definitely an influence. I don't know if I would call myself Southern Gothic, but I think that O'Connor certainly has left her mark on my writing, and there's a lot that I appreciate about her perspective, and about her. She was a very strongly believing Catholic writer, but she wrote about a ton of stuff that was really out there and very, very disturbing. A lot of it, her inventory of human behavior. It's a lot of it's comes close to being maybe misanthropic, but it's always, I think there's a sense of grace about her attitude towards her characters that kind of saves it. And as far as what you said about considering suicide, that's great. I mean, I'm really flattered to hear. I'm very moved to hear that book meant so much to you. I know that you'd written a positive review of it, and I appreciated your take on it and your support, and the nice things you had to say about it. But that it helped bring you back from the brink. That's great. That really makes me feel good. Thanks for relaying that.
Yeah, it's a good book. You can go get that. It's on Amazon. It's available from 9 Books, I believe. Considering Suicide. Good book. All of Andy's books are good. And you should buy all of them. Maybe you should buy 2 copies, so you can evangelize on the street.
I agree. Buy them. They're really good. And I don't like anything that I don't like.
But anyway, here's the last question so far. The Right Honorable for $5. Good to see a live show. Thank you very much for that, man. I'm hoping we can do these a bit more regularly now that I'm back on American time. Because when Bryden and I first started Terror House Radio, we were going to do the shows live, but the issue was I was living in Armenia at the time, which is 9 hours ahead of Eastern time. And the best time to do a live show is like right now in the early evening Eastern time, which would have meant if we did live shows, I would have had to do them at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm I'm not doing that. But I'm hoping we can do these more regularly because they're quite fun with the audience participation and all that.
Matt, you've been traveling the world, man. I mean, you've been just like swinging along from country to country, and I've envied your. It doesn't sound like it's necessarily always been that fun, but
especially considering the last year and all that's happened in the last year, certain events.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that's a curveball, but it's pretty cool how you've just like one time I'm talking to you and you're in one godforsaken place, and another time I'm talking to you and you're in an entirely different godforsaken place, and now you're in Mexico. Which
did you ever send him topless videos in Albania too?
Yeah, I've gotten to look at his ripped physique. He's the real heart killer. But yeah, I think I've talked to you like every time you've been on the show, I've been in a different country. First time was in Armenia, second was in Albania, third was in Bosnia, and now I'm in Mexico.
Yeah, I guess it was all Eastern Europe. So it wasn't like you were just going all over the place. But I know you've been to the Philippines, and I know you spent a lot of time in Hungary and stuff. And I've wanted to travel more than I have, so I've kind of envied your the world being your oyster, and on a how you've sort of, it's like, the poor man's, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I don't think you're not exactly jet setting, but you're still sort of making your way through all these places, and it's pretty cool.
I mean, it wasn't actually intentional. I mean, what happened was, I started Terror House Press when I was still living in Georgia, the country, and my plan was to move to Argentina and get set up there. But when I set up the company, I couldn't have the bank card delivered to my address in Tbilisi because that was it was illegal to do that through UPS there, and also because I didn't trust the mail service because it's really corrupt. So I went to Armenia for a couple of weeks a couple of months actually to get the bank card, and I decided, I'm probably not gonna be in Europe for a while. I should go and do a road trip and see the countries I haven't seen, and also link up with my friends in Hungary and whatnot. So I flew to Greece for a week. And then I took a bus to Albania, and that's when COVID happened. And I was in Albania for 4 months, 2.5 of which were spent under lockdown with in an apartment that had running water for only 5 hours a day, neighbors that threatened to call me the police if I used the bathroom in the middle of the night. The really fun stuff. It was a really enlightening and happy experience.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't sound like a blast at all, but
yeah, I'm here in Mexico now, and I'm done with traveling for the moment. Like right now, you're going to if you want me to leave the house now, half the time you're probably going to have to just lob tear gas in the front window.
You're back. You're in, where you are. You're in the country of Trotsky's last stand before he got ice picked by Stalin.
Are you implying something, Andy?
Where do you want to go? And also, shout out to Ultra Testosterone. I love all your comments.
Yeah, shout out to all the beautiful people in the chat. You liven things up considerably. I'm here just because I'm sick of moving. Mexico is the weather's great. I have not seen there's not been a single cloudy day in Guadalajara for the past 2 months. It's open right now. There's nobody will give you shit for not wearing a mask. There's no lockdowns.
That's great.
And you can, I'll put it to you, I'll put it like this. You can get anything you want here, as long as you're prepared to pay. You can read however you want.
Very euphemistic way of putting that.
I mean, you might be interested in it because you went to South Dakota recently, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you examined how South Dakota is like probably one of the only places in the country that's like still letting people act and live normally.
I was it was amazing. Yeah, it was incredible. I went to these public events, and nobody was wearing masks, and there were huge crowds of people, and it was like, wow, this is fantastic. I love it. I want to move here. That was how I was feeling. But so it sounds like that's the way things are in Mexico right now too, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, it's been about an hour. Well, before we go, I wanted to talk a bit about the upcoming audiobook version of Under the Nile. That will be out. That will be out sometime next month. I don't have a hard release date on it because that's how these things work. But Andy, you want to? I mean, I've already interviewed you about Under the Nile, but you want to say a few words for the new people who've come into the show, because we've got a much larger audience than we did about a year ago, and there's a lot of people who are super interested in your work now, I'm sure, after watching this.
Yeah. Well, I completed I've always, I mean, I like to read. I like to read out loud. I enjoy performing. So when I think you suggested it to me, or maybe I asked you and you said sure, go for it.
I think I suggested it to you just because last summer we were in an expansion phase.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun. I mean, and so so my novel Under the Nile, which is not the last thing you published, Lost Violent Souls, like a few months ago, but the one that you published before that was Under the Nile, and it's probably my favorite book of mine, for whatever that's worth. I really enjoy it. And so yeah, so I worked on an audio version of it, and apparently, there's more. Apparently, you can't just go anywhere and record yourself and have that work out, because there were some problems, and I had to make some corrections, which I was happy to do, in a slightly quieter location. I don't have a solid soundproof studio, unfortunately, but 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 yeah. So I had a lot of fun doing it, and it's going to be out in when?
It'll be out middle of next month. And look, Eris got her copy of the book out.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Yeah.
so
Love it.
and so, Eris, you have some you wrote or spoke a nice review of.
Yeah. I actually just queued that up right now. We're going to play Eris's review. She posted it on Twitter.
Cool.
Here we go.
Oh, it's the day before my birthday. Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's playing, but it's not. I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, fuck.
I couldn't hear it either. I was like,
yeah, you have to press a separate button for that. Hold on.
Yeah, it was pulsating, so I could tell that it was going, but.
Yeah. Lovely. Wait, where is it?
Hey, this is live.
Where is the goddamn share audio button? Some screens let you share audio. Okay, so
I'm doing the sound of silence. Someone said.
Okay, so it looks like I'm gonna have to let me fix this. I have two different browsers open. One for the stuff that I'm putting on screen, but all right, here we go. That's one downside of a live show. When you fuck up, you can't hide it. You can't hide it. You can't massage it with editing.
Right,
But
didn't I just come into the show screaming at someone? You're fine.
all right. So let's see. Brave tab. Here we go. Here we go. It should be working now.
everyone should just go and just watch it. Oh. What I say isn't that. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
I got disconnected. Did we all get disconnected?
I'm
Nothing
still
happened.
here.
Okay.
Basically, I just said that I was really vibing with the character.
Well, great. I'm glad to hear it. I'll look it up and listen to what you have to say with avid interest.
Apparently, it's still not working. So, like,
Well, why don't just put a link to it and people can.
I'll throw the link in the chat. So,
yeah.
But yeah, basically, she loved the book, and and she said my favorite part of the review is when she said she liked the part where women were getting killed and not raped.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll post a link for everyone. But yeah, Under the Nile will be out in audiobook format next month. It'll be God damn it, I fucked up a link again. I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be out next month. And you're also going to be working on a audiobook version of the Columbine Pilgrim. That'll be out.
Yeah.
That'll be out soon enough.
Yes, I will do that. As far as I know, the Columbine Pilgrim is my bestseller, which isn't saying a lot, but it is the one that I think has gotten the most notoriety out of everything I've written. So it's probably a good choice to do next as a audiobook. And both of the audio, did you mention it's going to be on available on Audible?
Yeah, the books are available, going to be on Audible, Amazon, iTunes, and also directly through our web store at terrorhousepress.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry?
I would love the villain of my book to meet yours. That would be so cool. Because they're both sadists.
I'll have to read your book and see what you mean.
Yeah, you should all go buy a copy of Ruthless Little Things. You can get that at exbatpress.com.
Yeah.
I'll throw that up on the screen as well.
Cool.
Arnold terrorism for the win.
Yeah.
Carnal terrorism, right?
But I think that pretty much covers it. It's been a good hour, but you always want to end on a high note. Before I've got a bit of a news segment for everyone. Obviously, you know about Heart Killer coming out on the 26th and Under the Nile coming out next month in audiobook format. But in terms of other news, we also have the audiobook version of Masculinity Amidst Madness by Ryan Landry. That will be out next month as well. And this is the first time I've mentioned this. I'm recording an audiobook of Letters from a Heartbroken Pervert by Richard Power. That was our very first book. I'm doing the audiobook just because I don't think any professional narrator is going to want this on their resume for reasons that should be obvious. I'm not sure when that's going to be out. I'm still in the middle of recording it, but my upstairs neighbor moved out. He's no longer blasting EDM at odd hours of the night. So I actually have my apartment actually has a separate office, so I actually have the space to record now. So that'll be out soon enough. And we've got a bunch of other great books coming in April, including Bergman's Island and Other Stories by Ralph Munday, Gutter Snipe by Jay Black, Freedom by Wang Yin, which is another Chinese poetry volume translated by Xenon, co-author of With Light and Dust. We've got great stuff coming up right here on right here on Terror House Press. But anyway, Andy, is there anything you want to plug before we end the show? Anything you want to promote?
Well, I would just say, is when is Heart Killer available for pre-purchase yet, or?
It will be available in the next few days. I'm thinking Tuesday or Wednesday. I will send the links out when that is appropriate, and of course, it'll be out on Friday, March 26th. You can catch that.
Cool. Well,
it'll be available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, TerrorHousePress.com, and indie bookshops everywhere. You'll literally be all of our books. You can literally go any book that orders from the Ingram catalog, a bookstore that orders from the Ingram catalog, which is almost all of them. You can go in and you can order one of Terror House's books. So you don't have to shop at Amazon. You don't have to shop online. You can go out. You can breathe the fresh air of freedom. You can go to a store and mingle.
Take off your mask.
Yeah, exactly.
I would recommend that. I would just I would say if what I have described as the plot of Heart Killer is interesting to you, then make that purchase however you want to, but preferably directly avoiding the Bezos regime and going directly to this scrappy small business publisher, Terror House. That would be great. But also, if you're interested in my other work, of fiction and nonfiction, then please visit my site, my author site, which is altrightnovelist.com, and there you'll find most of my work described, and you can look over what I've got and see what interests you, and maybe make a purchase or two there.
Yes, and they can also check out your YouTube channel. I've linked that in the description. Your new YouTube channel. You want to tell the story of what happened to your old one?
I love your website.
What was that?
I just looked up your website. The layout's great.
Oh, thanks. I had a YouTube channel going. It wasn't huge, but I had like over 4,000 followers, and then it got, it got like 3 strikes in pretty strong, in pretty quick succession, like old videos that I did that got flagged for really mysterious and stupid reasons. Like they said, I did a video about luminaries, like actors, like Hollywood film directors or high level politicians, and they accused me of cyberbullying, and it was just the dumbest thing. I mean, I think it felt very targeted, and I think it was, and I think that YouTube does target people, as we all know.
Well, it used to be just the way you flirted with people. I don't know what happened.
Yes, yes. James Gunn, famous movie director, multimillionaire, felt very bullied and very small about the things you said about him. Andy.
I know. I'm sure he's so aware of my existence. So is Hillary Clinton, and so is John Podesta, and so are all the others. But I had so YouTube sucks, but I still use YouTube just because. I mean, I'm appreciative of all the other sites, the free speech sites like BitChute, and I do go on there as well. And I've got some videos up somewhere else on Rumble, I think, maybe. So I'm totally behind the pro free speech alternative tech sites, but I keep posting. I had a backup channel on YouTube that is much smaller, has only like 350 followers now or something like that. So it's lower on the radar screen, but I've just kept posting videos on YouTube because it's easier, and also because it's the best way. It really is the best way to reach people. And so my continuing to post on YouTube does not mean that I endorse or like YouTube. I think YouTube is awful, but I am using them, I put it like YouTube is my whore. That's it. I'm using YouTube for my own purposes, and then and flinging it aside afterwards. But and I don't even have to pay. Unlike a horror, I don't even have to pay them. So
yeah, I was going to say the technical term is slut, not horror. But
yeah. That's a better way of putting it. But
yeah, you can go check out Andy's YouTube channel. The link is in the description. And of course, I have thrown up on screen the artwork for Heart Killer again. You can get Andy's other books, The Columbine Pilgrim, Under the Nile, and Lost Violent Souls from Terror House Press.
Yes.
And everywhere else. I think that covers it. And also, your Instagram is linked in the description, Andy. You're not on Twitter, right?
No, I'm not. I'm sort of. I've got a stealth account on Twitter, but I'm not friends with anybody there. I just go there to follow certain other Twitter pages but it's not under my name. So no, I'm officially not on Twitter. So. Yes, I am on Gab, but I don't really check my Gab all that often. So
yeah, he's you've liberated yourself from the hell site. But anyway, Eris, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to promote?
Well, if you like love and revenge and depravity, I'd also like my book, Ruthless Little Things, at expatpress.com. And I picked up the cover while I was in jail. I want everyone to know that I went to jail. And I lost my teeth, and that's why you should buy my book. Yes,
Eris has went through a lot of pain and suffering to get to this point. You should. And she's transmuted that into entertainment for all of us. But anyway, I have it up on screen now. You can get Ruthless Little Things at expatpress.com. Very good book. I highly recommend you check it out.
It has lesbian sex scenes in it, apparently.
I haven't gotten to that part yet, but I hear the lesbian sex got rave reviews, so I'm sure everyone will enjoy it.
I was worried they were going to be cringe, but apparently they're not. So that's good.
Yeah, that's great. You can Bryden Proctor's links aren't in the description. You can check out his website and all that. He will be back soon. He will return from his sojourn to Peru to enjoy the jungle.
When I was on, he seemed very sad.
He's doing a lot better now. But yeah, send up your energy for a quick and speedy recovery. And of course, you can check my workout. Everything me can be found at mattforney.com. My links are in the description. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Terror House Radio. Check out terrorhousepress.com, terrorhousemag.com for our books and our publications. You can, of course, follow our social media links in the description. And you can also find every episode of Terror House Radio, no matter what happens, at terrorhouseradio.com. The MP3 version of the show will be up on Anchor shortly after we conclude broadcasting. But anyway, Terror House Radio is produced by Bryden Proctor. Doesn't have intro music or an announcer anymore. We will be changing that shortly. But illegitimate non carborundum. Don't the bastards grind you down. I'm Matt Forney with Eris and Andy Nowicki, and we are out.